Morning.
Good late morning to me.
Yeah. So it's what, 8 or 9 for you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 a.m. for you.
Yes, sir.
Birds are chirping.
Bird. Well, it's funny. I haven't heard a bird here yet.
Yeah,
Maybe just
they actually don't exist in Arizona. They just never told you that.
yeah. It's just bears and coyotes out here now. It's a little different now. Just kidding. But
Yeah. How you
last
doing, bro? Thank you for waking up this early to rip it.
that's fine. You and I are always up this early, anyways. So
Yeah.
Um, last night I was coming back from the cigar bar. That's like my spot every Thursday. Just kind of chill and hang out. And there's these like mountains that surround Phoenix, and there's one like really close to me, and you can see at the top of these mountains these little white bright lights, and you can see people from miles away at the peak with like
Oh
their
shit.
it's the coolest thing. You're like, what the hell is
Take
that?
a You should take a picture.
I don't know if the camera would pick it up, but
Oh, not with the
wow.
people. Maybe like the view though. That's dope.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. Like you just see these little orbs
Yeah.
flying around up there. Anyways, everything good with you?
Yeah, stuff solid, man. Like really after riding the high of getting accepted or whatever, like life happens again, which is sick. It's just like back to the routine, which is nice. Yeah, everything's great. Honestly, I have no complaints.
Happy Friday, man.
Hey, happy Friday. We're here. Let's get right into it.
Sure.
Yeah, so this week Dan and I want to do a little Q&A for the listeners. To everybody that responded, thank you. It's going to be kind of a shorter episode, but I thought some of the questions are they're interesting, kind of relevant, and I think anybody who's into training or just like lifestyle would want to hear them. So, want me to get right to it?
Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause from the screen. I'm on my phone today. So, for anybody watching on YouTube, I apologize. Give me 1 second, Dano.
Yeah. And we didn't go over these before the call. Like Jake just finished his workout.
Yeah.
He's all changed and showered, ready to go for work, and he's in his car. So
Yes. So we're just going cold turkey. This is from the lovely Miss Haley Morgan. You're the
okay.
best, by the way. She said, guys, what do recovery days look like for you? And how often do you think they're needed, or if they're needed? And I thought that was a really cool one to start. So Dan, I'll let you hit it, honestly.
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of training, it always depends on what your goal is, and then that's how I tailor my rest days. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to the gym for only 20-25 minutes, even to a half hour, but it's every day, you can kind of get away with that. But if you're ripping the gym for an hour every day, you're eventually going to need that rest day. So for a quick example, what I do is Monday will be some type of upper body strength training. Tuesday will be a lower body strength training to give my upper body a rest. And then on that Wednesday will be some type of conditioning day. So I've hit upper body, then a lower body, then a conditioning day. After doing, 72 hours of some type of training, I'll usually take Thursday off and then restart that cycle on Friday. You can also get away with doing some conditioning every day, specifically doing some interval training. Now, interval training will tax the CNS the most.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a sprint is the most powerful movement you can do. So you have to be careful on how you implement that into your week. But in terms of just like a rest day, I tell people, depending on their training age, to take at least 2 days off. If you're brand new to lifting, you're definitely going to want some type of 48 hours in there off. It doesn't have to be back to back. But I also say to start the rest day, sleep in, relax, kind of do the things you enjoy, and not necessarily meaning going off your diet or not moving at all, but just go for the walk, throw on the podcast, do something where you're just moving, throw on some tunes, and in that rest day, make sure you also eat really well, because you don't want to not move as much as you do on a normal training day and eat like crap. And now, we're just X amount of calories over, right? I think that's a great opportunity to refuel your fridge. You'll have the time to do that. Recover, stretch if you want to. And yeah, that's what I would do. Do some of the things you enjoy doing that you wouldn't have time for on a training day. That's what I would say. How about you? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little more cut and dry on that. Like for me, recovery is absolutely essential for any training program. And the way I view it, and I think in part this is just because of discussion I've had with you and about built-in recovery and built-in progression. I always try to maximize my training performance. Like my training output is number one for everything. And if I'm not recovering, I can't possibly progress or have a better workout the following session. And so I view it as like trying to constantly like peak or like constantly trying to get better each workout. And I couldn't possibly do it without recovery. So what Dan had said, like if you're going into the gym and your only goal is aesthetic or just feeling good or getting a sweat, that's totally fine. And you probably could sacrifice some recovery. But for people who are listening and are like, no, I want to make a significant change or I want to put on muscle, you need to hit it hard. Like the body is only going to adapt to a new stimulus. And that means it either needs to be more intense, it needs to be longer, but in general, it just needs to be harder. And I think without recovery, it's not possible to continue that progression. So I would answer it more like that. In terms of my eating, I eat clean pretty much all the time, but what I do differently on my off days is I kind of load up. So Dan, you can talk about if you think this is a wise strategy or not, but I fuel a little bit more because I know that I need to have a really great workout. So like I'm eating for recovery. I'm eating higher protein, a little bit higher carbs on my off day so that I can hit it very hard the next day and that I'm recovering from the previous session. So that's kind of how I view it. Haley, I know that you're trying to, because you had asked this, you're trying to really make big change and progression, which you've already done. And I would highly suggest off days to do that.
Yeah. And finally, just investing in a good off day will maximize your performance potential in the
Yeah.
following X amount of days.
Yeah, which is for me the number one. So I thought that was a great question. Let's
Cool.
get to the next one.
Number two.
This
I
is
was
from
so sad I didn't get any questions. What?
whatever. It's because most in fairness came to the podcast Instagram. All right. Louis had sent me one previous. This was more of a life one, I think, actually.
Sorry.
He had said, oh, Louis, this was actually really nice, but he said, what's been the most challenging thing about the podcast and how have you guys overcome it and kept on growing this amazing series? First of all, Louis, that was really sweet. So I appreciate you continuing to listen, but I'm down to answer that.
Like, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the most challenging thing is finding new content because Dan and I continually, like, we love having these conversations. We would do it weekly. It's just, I think, really difficult. And we didn't keep into perspective, like, our messaging that we believe so strongly. It's like one message and we're trying to grow from the listeners that we speak with, but the content's been generally the same, which is totally fine. Like hearing people's angles and different perspectives on their personal growth or their story or any way we can mediate like certain lessons to the listeners is cool. I just think we're constantly trying to find like what's going to be interesting for people to listen to, what's going to be a effective way to get more listeners or get more of a following. And personally, like we don't that's not the hasn't been the primary objective for a while, but I think it's starting to become all right, like let's change it up because it makes it more fun. And I think that's been hard. And it's just something we didn't go in blind. We knew eventually it was going to happen. And I think we're hitting that point where it's like, how do we make it more fun? And we're going to find it. We just got to keep trying out new stuff. That's what I would say for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think content's always the hardest. Like you can only talk about the gym and nutrition so much. And
Yeah.
I think that's where getting individuals in on the podcast who specialize in one thing is good. Like some of the nutritionists or PT people we've had on. I would say another tough part is just trying to schedule people.
Yeah.
Anytime you ask someone you will be on the podcast, like who doesn't want to be on a podcast?
Yeah.
But like, let's take into account our two schedules, let alone like a whole nother person. And then you have to set up the Zoom and all that. So that's a pain in the butt. But like, it is what it is. It's fine. And, you know, I don't think we've really gone that hard on the social media stuff or
Yeah. No.
investing in it and paying for ads. Like John G's very cool and gave us the opportunity to do that. But I think if we really sat down, you know, and met up for a couple weekends and did a plan to do it, I think we could grow it perfectly fine.
Yeah.
We're just busy. We like having conversations and but that's okay. Like as long as we can bridge the gap of exercise science, health, medicine, and clarify that for the listeners. I mean, just putting out content will get traction no matter what you do, as long as
Yeah.
it's good in quality.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've discussed this offline so many times, but Louis, thank you for continuing to listen. But for anyone interested in starting a podcast, I would say that those are definitely the two pieces that are difficult is just content and scheduling. It's just, it's logistically, it's hard, but I would totally recommend it. And I have zero regret about starting it. So if you're interested and have something interesting to talk about, I would just go for it personally.
And yeah, last thing I'll say too, it doesn't have to be half hour, 45, an hour long. It could be 5 minutes of a podcast episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like, what do you want people to take from it? That's all.
Yeah. I just like to talk. Dan has to cut me off. He like, chill out.
I'm indirectly saying like, let's start. No, I'm kidding.
Let's get going. All right, cool. I'll hit the next one.
All right. Yeah, shout out Louis.
Yeah, shout out Louis. I appreciate it. Oh, this was for one of my old campers who's actually become a new friend. I said I would shout him out. Not a question. He said, my question is, when are we having an Avoda send in Southie? That was Shay Wanglin. Shay, it's a two-way street, brother. Just hit me up. But I wanted to shout you out. Thank you for being a listener. You're my boy. Appreciate you. So I told him I would do that. All right. The next one. This is from Adam Cataldo. He's a coworker who actually is a big runner. And he's trying to get into lifting. And he said, hey, Jake, I think it would be cool to discuss what is the best split for a new person to the gym.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I had messaged him back and said, this is a tough one, but Dan and I will do our best because it's a very umbrella question. But we can try to piece it apart.
Yeah. So what I would say, you know, being at Boston College and running the men's and women's track and field and men's cross country teams, what worked for us, you know, now this brings in so many what ifs. I'm assuming his name's Adam.
Yep.
Adam's goal is to cut down his time. I don't know how much he runs a week, but you're gonna have having to start to balance your mileage with strength training. The way I would look at it briefly is find out what a low mileage week looks like, what a moderate mileage week looks like, and a high volume of mileage week looks like. Once you can understand that, progressing those weeks in the mileage, that's where you can, add a mile or two or whatever you want to do to those weeks. So that's easy. Now that we're adding in strength training, I would probably start with 2 days of strength training, full body, not focusing on an upper or lower, and making it functional. What I mean by functional is I don't want you to be using machines. The way that you're running is free. Well, let's kind of word it like that. So I want you to be able to use free weights. So instead of a machine chest press, more of a push up or a dumbbell bench press. Instead of maybe not a squat, because when you're running at them, every step you take is a balance on one foot for a second. So if we're balancing on one foot with every step, I would probably want you to do some type of single leg exercise to strength train the legs. And that's vice versa with even the arms as well. You can do that. So I would figure out what a low, moderate, and heavy week looks like in terms of mileage, progress each week by adding a mile or a half mile, and maybe implement some tempo or interval training. And then 2 days of strength training. You're going to be sore for the first couple of weeks, but you're going to see a decrease in your times because now that you've gained some strength in the muscles, we're that much more efficient, not only at metabolizing the food that we eat, but you're just adding strength to the joints. And the last thing I'll say is every step you take, and Jake's heard this, when you're running, each step you take is about 3 times your body weight on that ankle, knee, and hip. So if you're 100 pounds, you take a step running wise, that's 300 pounds of force on the ankle, knee, and hip. Now, if we don't strength train our lower body, which you're going to be doing, all that force and the pounding, thousands of steps per run, that's a lot of force that the body tends to take on. So if we can strength train, we'll be stronger, joints and ligaments get stronger, and it's just, full circle. I think that's the basic way I could answer that.
Yeah, I think that's really great using Adam as an example. Another thing I kind of have recommended to people that are new to the gym is just doing calisthenics to start. And the reason that I suggest that is because Dan and I, because we've trained for so long, and many people that had worked out in high school, you have some sense of mind muscle connection. Like you have more of a maturity of how to feel the muscle contract. But calisthenics, the push up, the pull up, the body weight squat, some of these abdominal exercises, that's a really good way to feel a squeeze of the muscle with very low load. Like you're not going to injure those joints. And so I suggest trying those in certain progressive ways. So like if you can't do a push-up, you start with a push-up on your knees, but get the feel of how your chest is supposed to be expanding and contracting. When you're doing a squat, understand how to use your glutes and your hamstrings, like really feel the muscle before you hit the weights. It seems to be effective as long as it's monitored. And I think developing mind muscle connection from the get-go would have drastically helped my training, and I think would help anybody because it just makes the lift much more efficient.
And great point. The scientific term for that's the proprioception. So how you feel in space, like if you were to close your eyes. And everyone who begins lifting will see strength gains, not because they're getting stronger and their muscles are growing. it's simply because you're becoming more coordinated
Yeah.
in that specific movement.
Yeah.
And a perfect example is, and this doesn't actually matter with your training age. When we talk about Squattober and squatting every day, yes, people will gain strength because of the amount of volume that they're training. But if you're squatting every day, you're becoming that much more efficient at moving the weight, which is hence why you probably add an extra 10 pounds to the squat. So
Yeah. I think great points. And then just the last question we got. This was, hold on, this is on my personal one. Where is it? All right. Anyways, it was from my brother Ben Alexander. I remember it. He just said, "What are you and Dan's favorite exercise to do in the gym?"
None. You go first because I don't know.
Me? Yeah. So I don't have this machine at Equinox, but it's doing a hammer strength high row, plate loaded. So I've never felt a better contraction in my lat ever, but it's basically like it's chest supported and you're putting your arm up reverse and squeezing into the lat. And it's like your back just explodes how much blood is rushing to it. At Equinox, it's the dumbbell row. I send you clips of it every week. My progression's just insane. And I really love feeling my back because for years I kind of neglected it. Like I was just so chest dominant. And now my back's growing and I love it. So the dumbbell row and the hammer strength plate loaded high row are my two favorite exercises.
Okay. I would say when I was a coach at Stonehill College, we had this machine. It's called a pit shark.
Yes.
And the way it works is you stand on this platform, and in between your feet in the middle, there's this little gap where a chain is. That chain connects to a load of plates, and then the other side of the chain connects to a belt you wear. So as you go down and squat, you don't have to worry about a barbell on your back or anything. It's just you're wearing a belt, it's attached to these plates, and all you have to do is move up and down and squat. So the pit shark, I've only seen it once, and it was at Stonehill. So
yeah. Well, shit. That was the questions I got. So for everyone that asked, I really appreciate it. Dan, I'm happy we got an episode in this week, and thank you for waking up. I knew, as you were going to, regardless. But it's a good way to start the day.
Two things. Yeah. Lately, I never thought I'd say this. I've been loving the elliptical. I know it sounds crazy, but you can really get a good burn on it. So if you're ever feeling tired and don't have a bike, tired of running, no pressure on the knees or the ankles. Like it feels really nice. Throw on a Netflix show. And then second of all, today, I'm sure you saw, I uploaded it for the East Coast. The ebook, free new ebook, breaks down how to program for yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a direct message. But, it's about 10, 12 pages of just breaking down all these different strength and conditioning principles for the average person to understand who can take any exercise science classes. So very excited about it, and love to produce or provide value and knowledge.
Yeah, for that ebook, as a client and also your friend, but I mean someone who isn't dumb about the strength and conditioning world, this is the best. This is like the best breakdown I've personally seen of anything online. Like anything you're gonna find online is a load of crap compared to this, because this is very science based. People forget Dan has a master's in this, and he really, really effectively shows you how to periodize and how to program, like as simple as it gets. Like my mom could do this probably in 10 minutes. because of how clear it is. So I would highly recommend getting it. It's totally worth it.
Appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, that's my testimonial. All right.
Perfect.
Hey, listeners, until next time, peace.